Welcome to the Thundercast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week. So keep it right here. The Thundercast is on the loose. One of the biggest off-season stories in Huntington happened on the coaching staff. Ralph Street's incredible run as the defensive line coach for the Herd has led him to the NFL, where he is now an assistant defensive line coach for the Cleveland Browns. But Anthony Leonard inherits a room that may be in a better position than many people realize. Marshall's also returning to a defensive structure that better fits both the roster and the recruiting profile, in my opinion. The Herd won a Sun Belt championship out of a four-man front in 2024, and this defensive line may finally be built to attack yet again. The question isn't whether the room has talent. The question is the Herd's defensive line ready to eat? Thanks for downloading another episode of the Thundercast. You can follow us on Twitter at Thundercast_pod. Listen to the Thundercast anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast, and watch us, of course, on the Thundercast YouTube channel. We are knee-deep in the position group breakdown series this year in 2026. If you've missed any of our episodes to this point, they are all available on our platform. So please make sure you're staying up to date on the Herd, because nobody dives deeper than the Thundercast when it comes to Herd football. Russ, this, as mentioned, it's first-year coach Anthony Leonard taking over on the defensive line for Marshall after Ralph Street's departs for the Cleveland Browns. Phil still ranks this unit tied for fourth in the Sun Belt. With some preseason honors, McKaylin Warren, the defensive tackle, is a third-team preseason Phil Steele all-Sun Belt selection. And let's give a few numbers defensive-wide. This is not necessarily pertaining to the defensive line. They are just a part of this. Let's give the defensive production numbers from 2025 so people can give a little bit of context to what we're about to talk about. The Herd racked up 29 total sacks in 2025, which was 68th in the country, 79 total tackles for loss, good for 76th. They allowed 148.9 rush yards per game, which was 61st in FBS, 3.9 yards per carry, which was tied for 55th. They allowed 410.6 total yards per game, which was way down 108th in the country, and not much better, 30.3 yards or points per game allowed, which was 80th in the country. We knew there had to be wholesale changes. Defensive line just happened to be part of that. We did not expect Ralph Street to go. He was not relieved of his duties. He's got a better opportunity. When the NFL comes calling, you're probably going to listen. So now that we've got a baseline for this 2025 defensive line, as we look towards 2026, what's your feeling around the room?
We're going to get into it a lot more in depth, but the 30,000 foot view is I am very up on this room. I think that it's going to be apparent by the end of this show that we have recruited certain athletes for certain departures from what we were doing on defensive line last year. And if I can take 15 seconds to remind everyone on this show, Coach Gibson, I asked him, Coach, you might not be able to answer this or answer it fully, but is this going to be more of a 4-2-5? Would we still see, a 3-4, a 4-3? Would we have a hybrid and maybe even still see it sometimes a 3-3-5? And he said all of those. But we're going to be in 4 down position on the defensive line. He specifically mentioned having edge rushers coming off there. He mentioned them by name. We'll get into that more in depth, but you can expect them to be in a 4-2-5 and then occasionally go into a 3-4. And I'll have a little bit about that in a little bit.
Yeah. Tony Gibson said, we really want to be multiple. And I think this year, since they had a full off season to really identify what they needed, the attributes they were coveting, they are better built now to be a multiple defense. And of course, wholesale changes with a brand new defensive coordinator coming in. I don't want to say abandoning the 3-3-5, but switching up back to a 4-man front, I think is going to pay huge dividends in this league, because we've already seen it pay huge dividends in Huntington. Before we can talk about what's new in town, we got to talk about what has departed from the program from a year ago, guys that either hit the portal or just exhausted eligibility, because there were some playmakers. Yeah, some guys that I would love to have seen return to bolster what they brought in the portal. So let's cover those guys before we talk about who's new to the program.
All right, I'm going to list them by name and where they went or why they're no longer on the program, on the roster. Katron Evans went to NC State through the portal. Jalil Rivera Harvey exhausted his eligibility. Tyus Martin exhausted his eligibility. Paul Hudson III went to Washington State via the portal. Sid Kaba and Naquan Crowder both went to Minnesota via the portal. Ali Abbasi went to Robert Morris, and Jamal Weiss went to Baylor. So we had a room that, they either felt like they were undervalued in the 3-3-5, or they felt like they wanted to go somewhere else. And a lot of them went to Power 4 schools. So it's not like we didn't have talent here, according to other coaches and recruiters, but we lost 8 players, 6 to the portal, 2 to eligibility exhaustion.
Yeah, so that's a big chunk out of the room, but of course the cupboard's not bare. We're going to talk about those folks that are returning, that returned from a year ago, and the newcomers to the roster. But I think now's a great time to talk about our presenting sponsor for the 2026 Position Group Breakdown series for the Marshall Thundering Herd, and that is Secure Construction Company. We're going to play you guys a quick ad so that you can get a little bit more detail about what Secure can do for you. But if you're in need for a new roof or roof repair, your first call should be to Secure Construction Company.
Your roof takes a beating from this tri-state weather. High winds, never-ending downpours, and more lead to leaks, loose or missing shingles, and other storm damage. Don't wait until it gets worse. Get Secure. Secure Construction has been handling commercial and residential roofs in the tri-state for more than 25 years. They have been family-owned since 2000, are fully licensed and insured, have a 10-year workmanship warranty, and have been voted best in the tri-state 14 years running. So if your asphalt, rubber, or metal roof needs replaced, repaired, or just needs an honest inspection, call Secure Construction today at 304-733-1760 or find them on the web at secureconstruction.com. Be sure and mention the Thundercast when calling for your free, honest estimate. Home improvements in secure hands.
We certainly do appreciate Secure Construction Company for coming on this year as a sponsor and helping us present this series to Herd fans, because Herd fans love doing business with Herd fans, and Secure Construction Company are exactly that. So thank you for coming aboard this year, and let's get back to the show. Russ, let's talk about the guys that are holdovers from the year before 2025 to 2026. I hope I got them all. If I didn't, I'm sure you have a list to catch me if I have fallen, but I have 7 that returned from a year ago. Is that about what you have?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm going to start on the interior defensive line with the aforementioned McKaylen Warren, the 6'3", 300-pound defensive tackle, Makai Lockhart, 6'3", 305, and Cam Chimura, a 6'3", 295-pounder. We're going to talk about a handful of edge rushers / defensive ends, whatever you want to call them. And the first one on the list we have to talk about is the uber-talented Braden Ward. We've been high on him for a couple of years, the 6'3", 250-pounder. J.C. Clayton returns to the Herd, 6'4", 245. Donovan Garrett, 6'3", 240, and Jackson Cunningham back for another year with the Herd, 6'4", 250. So again, the room is not bare. There is some talent that returns. And I think leading the way, despite McKaylen Warren getting that preseason All-SBC nod, I'm not taking anything away from him. I think most eyes might be on Braden Ward.
AD, you're going to hate me because I got some corrections here for you. I
Okay.
don't know if you were transposing different heights and weights
Oh,
from
I don't
players,
know.
but Braden Ward is 6'6". You got him at 6'3", but he's 6'6", and he's actually put on 9 pounds of weight from last year. But the big one, Macalin Warren, he is 6'4", 382
Oh,
pounds.
wow. Wow. Oh, maybe I must have hit the 0 instead of the
Yeah.
8.
Yeah. But last year he was 358, and he was a big guy on the
Yeah.
line last year. So now again, this is preseason. This is not what he's going to be, or any of these guys are going to be when the fall roster comes out. But as of right now, I just wanted to point those two out because they had a little bit of body change composition from last year. But the big body on the line, 6'4", 382, Macalin Warren, and then coming off the edge, 6'6", 255, Braden Ward.
Yeah. Now back to my point that you nodded. I think most fans identify quickly with Braden Ward and what they've seen the past 2 seasons, especially in spots, flashes, and I think a lot of fans are looking this year to be that breakout type year for Braden Ward. I'm not trying to take away anything from any of these guys, take away anything from them, but I think most fans most quickly recognize Braden Ward and are probably thrilled that he decided to stay back. In-state talent, you know. So it's always nice when those guys are returning, decide to stay. Any notes on on this returning talent before we hit some newcomers?
No, we just had, those body changes. Everybody else was within, 5 to 6,
And
7 pounds. And, again, that's not what it's going to be in the fall, but it just leapt out to me with Macalin Warren being up at 382 now. That is a big, big body.
It's an 80-pound difference because I missed a keystroke.
Well, I've still got you, if you remember, from Peyton Ellis last year when I had him at 210 as an offensive lineman coming here from Texas. So
everybody's like, wow, 210. That guy must really be strong. So let's talk about some of these newcomers. This is where it's an anomaly for the Herd this year. No players out of the high school ranks. I think that says a lot about the strategy with this coaching staff.
Yeah.
Every newcomer to the Herd program, and there are several, all came through the transfer portal. That tells me they want guys that are acclimated to the game, guys that have been in a college strength program before, guys that they can plug in and get immediate impact out of this year. I don't think there's any other position on the roster this year that has newcomers that also didn't have a high school signee. I think every other one, maybe some specialists or kickers, and we even had Heimbach. So I think every other one had at least one out of the high school ranks. All portal players. So let's talk about those guys. Let's start on the interior first. We're going to start with Cole Funderburk, 6'4". I may get these heights and weights wrong. God, please help me if I do. 6'4", 290 out of Wake Forest. Michael Williams, 6'3", 295, comes to us out of UTSA. Simeon John, 6'4", 300 to UVA Wise. Then we're going to move to those outside guys, the edge rushers and defensive ends. 2 guys actually get called edge rushers on the Herd Zone roster. Nobody else does. So we'll talk about those guys first. And that's Kelvin McBride, 6'2", 222 out of NC State, and Keydale Painter, 6'3", 250 out of Virginia Union. The other handful of guys are listed as defensive ends. That's BJ Carter, 6'4", 245 from Iowa State. Kenyatta Harge, 6'4", 245 out of the University of Kentucky. And Terry Nuabusi Azalea, 6'5", 255 out of Vanderbilt. I'm sure they were not all pound for pound, but it's pretty damn close. And that is, 9 guys, newcomers to this program, all portal players.
Are you ready to hate me again?
No, I mean, if you've got if you must fact check, then go ahead.
Well, Funderburk is actually, he's not listed as an edge, but he's at 229 pounds. He is coming off the defensive end. I think there's somewhere in your notes you were off a line or something.
Must have been.
Because also I said it way before the camera got on here. I said it right, but Nwabuisi Azalea is 6'1", 329
Yeah, see
pounds
what
out of
happened. I
Vanderbilt.
don't know.
Something's off on your thing, and I'm not taking away from that. It doesn't matter. Kenyatta Harge, 6'1", 299. Cole Funderburk, 6'3", 229. So Harge will be on the interior. Funderburk actually was mentioned by Gibson as one of those guys that he thinks has some speed coming off the edge. He is not listed as an edge, though. I have a little theory on that I'll get into later when we're talking about some stuff.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about semantics here. The guys are on the defensive line. We just want you to know if they're going to be lining up on the edge or not. You can go to the Herd Zone roster and get the stuff, and these stats are going to change when the fall roster comes out for what their current weights are anyway.
So heights and weights notwithstanding,
Right.
let's talk about the vibe you get from this overall newcomer class.
I think that specifically going to a 4-down set, whether it's a 4-3, a 4-2-5, whatever kind of hybrid they're going to get into, they're really wanting to get those edge rushers. They're wanting to get those speed rushers off the side, and they're wanting to try to create havoc. That is something that we are very used to at Marshall. Mm-hmm. We have a very good history of defensive linemen coming off the ends, whether they were listed as a defensive end or an edge or whatever. We have a very good history. Obviously, the most recent is Mike Green, mm-hmm. But I feel like that is what we're going to do. Last year, we had to have the big guy nose tackle, and then you had another defensive tackle, and you had one guy that was a defensive end. Well, now you're going to be rushing two and trying to create that havoc in the backfield. And I think it's obvious we even have two players listed as edge on the roster that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, so let's now talk about projected starters. Of course, this really means nothing because of the way I feel like this room is structured. You're going to see a lot of bodies playing a lot of snaps and trying to keep a lot of fresh legs in there. But let's talk about who we think our four are. And of course, I did two defensive ends or / edge rushers and two defensive tackles. However, you did it. Okay, good. So I'll let you lead the way wherever you want to start. I don't care.
I'm calling both on the outside, either a defensive end or an edge. So I'm going to start with Braden Ward on one of those sides.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest slam dunk maybe in this episode. It's got to start with Braden Ward, and we had some conversations with some people that are pretty close to this room, pretty close to these positions, and they were kind of over the moon about what Braden Ward was, what he could be if he puts it all together this year and really unleashes on defenses. And I think, again, this is going to be the common theme with this, being able to go back to a four-man front, I think is going to open up some of the strengths with these edge rushers like we weren't able to see as much last year. Think about how great Mike Green was in a four-man front. And he's a generational talent or an era talent. Like I've said it many times that Mike Green is this era of college fans, the students, that he's their Vinny Curry. Right. And if you got those guys every year, well, you'd have a Vinny Curry every year. They just don't come around very often. Right. So Braden Ward puts it all together back in a four-man front. He could be yet another great edge rusher.
Crazy motor on the guy. I have been to some limited practices, not this year. I haven't gone to a single one. We can't say anything if we did go to them, but couple of years ago, noticing him as a true freshman, how every drill he finished first because he hustled the entire time. And that just shows you the kind of player that he is. His father was Ron Ward that played at basketball at Concord, runs in the family, just to be an athlete. And I'm really expecting a lot from him, and I'm glad we agree on that.
Yeah, last thing I want to mention, he's a redshirt junior, so upperclassman, played a lot of ball. Who do you got next?
I'm going to go for the other edge, and that's Kelvon McBride, 6'3", 222. He's actually lowered his weight, and I think that was intentional to try to do a little something that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. After we do our heavy contributors, I want to talk about a little something.
Sure.
But I've got McBride because he is very familiar to Tony Gibson. I think that he was intentionally recruited for what they want him to do, and Tony talked about him by name on the show after talking about the makeup and trying to rush off the edge. So I've got him starting on the other end.
I actually do as well. Another redshirt junior defensive end came through the portal cycle as a linebacker, and I think that says a lot on the 2025 NC State roster. He's listed as a linebacker, and I think that's you can start to connect some dots with what they want him to be. But all signs point to being the complementary bookend to Braden Ward. Little undersized, little smaller, little quicker, but you probably love the bend on the guy. You like the rush ability, probably has a wicked first step, right? You kind of have to have that. So I like the idea very much so from what I've seen in Braden Ward in the past and what I expect to see from McBride of a Ward-McBride duo coming off the edge. I think that will play for the Herd in 2026. Let's move inside.
Inside, I'm going with the first one. It's the big guy. He's going to be closing those lanes quite big on the running lanes that hopefully will not open because of him. And that's McKaylen Warren, obviously, at 382. Last year, 358, somewhere in between there, wherever he settles this fall. That's still a big, big man.
Yeah, give me McKaylen Warren, too, from a defensive tackle spot or a nose, however they end up lining these dudes up. Another redshirt junior, according to the Herd Zone roster. Run Plugger says it all, really. Obviously can move. He has raised the eyebrows of a lot of defensive coaches on our roster and offensive coaches across the Sun Belt. So much so that you get named a preseason third team selection. I like that. Yeah, I mean that's the run stuffer that you need to hopefully be able to suck in two defenders and free up those edge rushers a little bit. So who's your fourth?
This one is one where I think that we may depart from each other. I actually thought that we would get those first three together, but I've got BJ Carter coming over from Iowa State. And when he was coming out of high school, top 150 at his position. So I expect a lot out of him, and I think that Marshall does too, and I've got him penciled in as our starter.
So I did not go with a newcomer here. I stayed with a holdover, a returning player. Defensive tackle Cam Shimura has played really well over the past couple of years, really kicked it up a little bit of a notch year over year for 2025. The redshirt sophomore makes him in my four, the youngster of the group. But I like the idea of BJ Carter, and I'll tell you why. Is because he came from Iowa State, where Matt Campbell was the head coach of now Penn State, who happens to be the Herd's opening week opponent. So that doesn't hurt if you're having that line of thinking. I just happen to go with a returning player over a newcomer. How about some big-time contributors? Give me those depth pieces. I stopped again at 6. If you have more, that's fine. But I limited myself to 6. So since you have 7, go ahead and start.
Yeah, I'm going to start with J.C. Clayton, Jacarius Clayton. I have him that he could be penciled in at any time coming off the edge as a starter. And I feel like where he came to us, he was a tight end, he was a defensive end, he was, both uber athletic. He's got that height, he's got that bend, he's got that speed. I look for him to do a lot coming off the edge, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him start, a third to half of the games.
Same. He is my number one choice as well because he's already played. He was starting to show a little something last year, and the season kind of got cut short. So if he's 100% and he's a full go, to me, he's a very, very dangerous player. I think if you look at a Clayton Ward, a Clayton McBride, Clayton players we're about to talk about combo, it does not worry you one bit. It does not feel like any type of drop off if JC Clayton's on an edge and one of the other guys is not. And 6'5", 255 does not hurt.
Yeah. My next one, I'm still staying outside, and I'm going with Keydell Painter. I say that you had him right on your lips there that you were getting ready to talk about before you said whoever we're going to talk about. I have him in a very high position, also listed as edge on the roster. They brought him in with McBride in the same kind of mold on what they expect from them. And I think that is probably your too deep on the outside is Ward, McBride, Clayton, and Painter.
Yeah, I agree. I was about to say Keydell Painter. I just did not want to get ahead of myself. Redshirt junior, 6'3", 229, comes to us from Virginia Union. Very intriguing prospect. When he announced his commitment, we all kind of dug into the bio, and it just leaped off at you about the pass rush ability, the rawness. I think getting a year with Ant Leonard, getting an off season, getting a weight room program with Dwight Galt, I think this stuff's really going to unlock some of the locks that Painter has still closed up. I think you're going to see him flourish a little bit this year. And again, a Clayton Ward, or a Painter Ward, any combo of those four guys sounds pretty damn good. And what that really says to me is you can always have a fresh pass rusher available. And late in games, when everybody else is starting to run out of gas a little bit and losing a step around the edge, you've got a guy that's still got a 85, 90% motor because you've been rotating really well. That's when those late game strip sacks happen, those forced fumbles, like all those things happen to swing a game. I love what they've done in the portal this year to really set themselves up to have some killer edge rushers. Who do you got next?
Well, I'm going to stick with outside, and you may have it a little bit different because of what happened there with the height and weight. But Coach Gibson actually mentioned Cole Funderburk, coming from Wake Forest, and he mentioned his speed coming off the edge. He only talked about 5 players from the defensive line because he was only talking about that rush edge position. And I've got him as being a heavy contributor as well. Again, after we talk about these contributors, you may figure out why I'm talking about so many on the outside.
Yeah, no, I actually did also have Funderburk on my list, 6'4", 229. I think that there's going to be a need. It just feels like there's going to be a need. We've seen Brad Lambert defenses in the past be very, very aggressive. So I think it will behoove you to have a plethora of edge rushers and flex players to be able to do the things you want to do. I've liked the aggressiveness of Brad Lambert defenses as long as I've been watching them. And I just think you need a lot of those guys. And of course, Funderburk adds to the list of guys that will allow you to do multiple things, So he's on my list too. Who you got?
I'm going next with Kenyatta Harge. I've got him on the interior and everything. I really like. He was a preferred walk-on over there. I know on your Will Ulmer episode, he was mentioned by Will as being around that Richmond area over there. But I really, really like this kid. And I think that he will be playing considerably, especially with Warren. If we need to get him off the field, again, nothing against the guy, but at 358 to 382, you don't expect him to be out there every single snap and things. So I think that we'll see Harge coming in and offering just a little bit different style of play.
Yeah, I agree. Kenyatta Harge is also on my big-time contributors list, 6'1", 299, redshirt sophomore. You're right, from that Richmond, Kentucky area. Again, just like we said with offensive line, you can never have enough defensive linemen. Right. And these are big guys, man.
Big guys.
And it's just not out of pocket to say they get fatigued, because it's a lot of mass to move. And yeah, you're in shape, but it's still a lot to move. And keep it at a high level all year long. Now, look, if the herd is out here getting 3-and-outs left and right, great. You'll
Yeah.
be able to see more of these guys with their tanks fuller. But if you
Right.
see long, sustained drives by the opposition, you better believe you're going to see some rotating interior defensive linemen
Yeah.
quite a bit. These guys
Anytime,
cannot put up an 8 to 12 play drive with one set of defensive tackles. It's just not going to happen.
anytime that you see an offense substitution and the defense gets to have their time to make the substitution, the defensive line most likely is where you're going to see a lot of that action and turnover, so you can get those fresh guys in there.
Yep. Who's next?
Next for me, I got Cam Chimera. I like him. I could put him right in there at starter, just like you. I've liked him since we signed him. I've liked him when he was a red shirt. I've liked everything about him, and I expect him to play quite a bit at the interior defensive line as well.
Since I've already spoken about Cam, you know what I have to say about him. And then since you have one more than I do, go ahead and give me the next.
All right, and it's Nwabuisi Azalea, the 329-pounder out of Vanderbilt. I am extremely high on him. Very intriguing. He signed out of high school with UNC, but he switched over to Vanderbilt, and then he did not play there. He redshirted, so he's got 4 years left. Big guy, heavily recruited. I'm expecting him to come in, and even though he is going to be a redshirt freshman, I expect him to get some snaps at least halfway through the season. That he's going to be working his way pretty heavy in the rotation.
Yeah, I too have Azalea on my list, and it's for all the reasons we've already said. You just need defensive tackles. You need guys that you can rotate in and rotate out, and it's a long season, man. It's a long season. And, I talked about this with Will on the Inside the Thunder episode. If you guys haven't seen that, you should go check out that interview. It's a great interview with Will Ulmer, former Herd offensive lineman. And we talked about his Ironman record. He started more games than anybody in Herd history. And I asked him how he could do it. And he was like, luck, it's luck. And we talked about how many times have you just been rolled up on and you're just able to get up. And this is that same kind of thing. You know what goes on in a pile? Like anything can happen down there. And just to be able to stand back up and play the next down is pretty amazing. And if you're able to do that over the course of an entire season, you're just really lucky, in addition to being in shape and, a good player. So you have to be able to not have your depth fall off a cliff and all of a sudden not be able to stop the run up the middle if you have an injury or two. So I think Azalea is going to be a big part of the defense at some point in the season, maybe not week 1, but at some point, a lot of these defensive linemen are going to get snaps, so good pick.
My final one, I've got Michael Williams that came to us from UTSA. He was at community college in Kansas for a couple of years before that. And he is 6'3", 286, a redshirt senior, one of only 2 seniors that we have on this defensive line. And I think that experience, but also we've said it before, you generally do not come to a new place as a senior, not expecting to play. Now, that's not just going to be given to him, but I think that they brought him here because they think that he fits in very well into this system. So wouldn't shock me to see him there with Azalea, there with Harge, there with Chimera, there with BJ Carter, Warren, just really rotating in pretty heavily on that interior part of the defensive line.
Yeah, I don't think it's any surprise that we nailed just about everyone. I mean, I stopped at 6. You had another one, and I too have Michael Williams, 6'3", 286. Upperclassman, JUCO guy. Those guys know how to grind. They know how to get the job done. That so many players go JUCO and then get lost in the shuffle. And you really have to love the game of football to be able to endure the JUCO route and prove that you deserve an opportunity somewhere else. And he got that opportunity at UTSA. Now, hopefully, we're going to get all of the dividends from all of that hard work in this final season of eligibility in this new Brad Lambert defense. I love the fit, and I think he's going to contribute sooner rather than later.
Before we get into the strengths and weaknesses, I said after we did the heavy contributions, I wanted to put out a little theory here, and call me crazy, but we have two guys listed as edge when other guys you would think Braden Ward would fit that mold to be listed as edge. Um, why are they specifically like that? Could it just be a quirk? Could it be a coincidence? Sure. But if you look up the difference between a defensive end and an edge, there's, you know, all edge rushers are defensive ends, but not all defensive ends are edge rushers, basically. But every now and then you can drop an edge back as an outside linebacker. McBride was an outside linebacker at NC State, where Coach Tony Gibson was famously the linebackers coach and defensive coordinator, very familiar with him. I think that we might see those guys be able to drop back at a certain time and not have to do a whole lot of personnel change to change the scheme. You know, coach said it was going to be a fluid hybrid, whatever the offense is giving us. I wouldn't be shocked to see them every now and then if we go into a 3-4, like he had mentioned, to where, you know, you bring in one defensive lineman and bring off a defensive back and just take two guys, Painter and McBride, and put them in the outside backers. One of those where you don't have to change the entire defensive makeup. Could that be totally wrong? Probably is, but that's just one of those things that stood out to me is like, hey, these two are specifically listed as an edge. We've got a linebacker here. We got Keydell Painter. Like you said, we were highly intrigued when that signing came in and you start looking up everything about him. It would not shock me to see them join our linebacker crew at a certain point in the game or against certain opponents or a drive or whatever and see them get a lot of action there.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all, because you're going to play a lot of offenses that are predicated on an RPO style, and it's going to behoove you to be able to drop an edge guy into coverage. I mean, think about it from our point of view on offense. What do we call Toby Payne? A huge mismatch, right? And you need guys to be able to cover guys like that. So that's right up in the wheelhouse of a McBride and a Painter, right? Depending on what the offense lays out there for you. Maybe you find those guys having to guard those mismatched dudes like Toby Payne. So it's absolutely not out of the realm of possibility. I think it's more likely than unlikely, because that allows you again to go multiple. You can show a rush and then drop back and not have any real holes in your defense. And these are the things when you're looking for an edge, and I don't mean an edge by position. I mean an edge to the game, an edge to win. These are the type of things that benefit you, because it might be the edge. It might be the difference in a win and a loss, a one play here or one play there. You know, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. I think it's a highly likely thing that may happen. Let's talk some strengths and weaknesses. Russ?
You've got 4, so you start off.
Okay. My number one overall strength is something we were just talking about, and it's personnel fit in the 4-man front and that, you know, flexibility. Marshall's return to a 4-man front better matches roster construction. We saw it firsthand last year at this level. You just need guys that don't always come to programs like Marshall to be able to make that 3-3-5 really, really effective. And I just think a 4-down line set makes more sense. Yep. It just does. It helps with all phases in the game. And can we say that knowing full well that we watched the championship trophy get hoisted from a 4-man front the year before, 2 years? Yeah, we can say that. So that's my number one strength, is they went out and found guys that will fit this scheme way better. We're not pounding square pegs into round holes. They went out and got round pegs for these round holes. And I think that is going to be a massive strength for 2026.
Well, it's my number 2, so I'll talk about it right now. I put edge and defensive end options. In 4-down sets, we will have 2 coming off the edge and at least 3 more in that same mold, same type of player, ready off the bench. We were missing that last year. I feel more pressure will help the second and third levels immensely. We talked about the struggles of the defensive back room. Tony Gibson talked about that when he was on our show. We had great individual performances, but just as a unit, it was not there. Well, I think the more pressure that you have and give a quarterback less time or a harder time back there, it's going to really, really help that third level with the defensive backs and everything, and allow them just a little bit more time to contain those big plays, prevent those chunk plays.
Yeah, good point. Good point. My number 2 strength for this group is experienced, impact ready depth. It is not by accident they hit the portal and attacked the hell out of it for their starters, heavy contributors, and depth pieces. That is not by accident. That is 100% calculated decision making. They intentionally rebuilt this room through the portal with players that have already been through programs, already acclimated to the college game, and have already contributed in other fashions to other teams. They went out and built a room that is ready to play right now.
That's my number 1. I put depth with an exclamation point on there because I was that emphatic about it. For a room that had 8 departures, this room is deep, man. And in fact, I think it's deeper this year than last year because of the makeup of the players, like we just talked about, you just talked about, and that I said would lead into my second point, but I've already talked about my second point was the 4 down and the guys coming off the edge.
So my number 3 strength, it goes back to football 101, and it's something that we've heard Tony Gibson say in the past. We want to run the football and we want to stop the run. That's football 101, and that is what we want to do. My number 3 strength is the potential to control the line of scrimmage with those big interior bodies. Experienced edge rushers and big interior bodies are going to give Marshall the chance to impact both the run game and not just the pass game, impact the quarterback, right? Keep him off of his spot, make those running lanes get harder and harder to get easy yards. You're looking at more 3 and outs, 3rd and longs, those type of things. These big bodies in the middle, man, holy moly. And having 2 of them as opposed to 1 of them, it's going to be massive. I mean, think of what was tasked with guys like Ketron Evans and Tyus Martin. Those guys were tasked with a lot to plug the middle. P3 really thrived in certain roles like that, but still, Marshall found itself at times throughout the season just unable to consistently stop the run or get off the field when they needed to. Louisiana comes to mind. You know, you just needed one stop, and you win that game. And they couldn't do it. And I think you go out and recruit the way you did and hit the portal the way you did, and you're able to fill in that interior defensive line with big bodies. Marshall could control the line of scrimmage game in and game out. If you look up and down the schedule, you're going to be hard-pressed outside of Penn State to go, there's not a team that we can't go toe-to-toe with or can utterly dominate the line of scrimmage against on this schedule.
My number 3 and my final one, I said we've got ceilings so high we need to take the elevator. Man, you talked about bringing in all these people, 0 from the high school ranks. Everybody is already been in a D1 nutritional program, a D1 weight room, got the schedule down, you know, everything, the mindset that comes with it. We brought in some guys. The talent that was brought in has the potential to be absolutely dominating. And some of these guys, I mean, 4 years to play if they're here this entire time. You know, I feel like they could make an impact this year and have more years to play. But there is some incredible skill and some incredible power in this room.
On top of the depth that we've talked about, my number 4 strength is there are multiple breakout candidates. Usually we're looking at one guy and hoping that you know, this might be the guy. There are multiple breakout candidates on this defensive line and in this room. Is this Braden Ward's year that he does it? Does J.C. Clayton also do it? McBride, is it his time to just take the league by storm? Several other guys, newcomers and returning players alike. You might find 3 or 4 guys on this defensive line room across SBC all conference teams. At the end of the year, we may have a potential defensive player of the year candidate on this roster right now.
Right.
I mean, the intentional, calculated makeup of this room is just mind-boggling. I mean, usually you go out and get guys, like every room is kind of intentional. You know what you want, but to go take no high school guys, they're like, we're not in the mood to develop right now. We want instant impact right now on the line of scrimmage.
Let's make a change.
That tells me they want to win a championship this year. We want to control the line of scrimmage. They did the same thing with the offensive line and went out and got guys that they think can control the line on that side of the ball. And they went and got guys that are experienced. Every one of them has experience in college football. They want to win this year. And there could be a handful of breakout players in this room. That's a massive strength. That's all you had, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, let's talk some weaknesses because, again, it's not all perfect and it ain't all sunshine and rainbows. There are going to be some things that will have to be fixed, that are going to have to be better than are currently happening on the practice field now. So let's talk strength, or let's talk weaknesses. I want to, even though I've got 4, I want you to start because I want to see if we match one this time.
All right. My very first one is Ralph Street is gone. I'm sure you're going to talk about that at some point. Herd all-timer that developed some herd all-timers as well, and crazy hard to replace. So that is my number one weakness.
Well, my number one overall weakness really is replacing Ralph Street. You said it. He's a legend. He's a herd legend as a player, an all-time great player. And then he came back here and continued to be legendary as a coach. And he churned out a generational player in Mike Green and gave a whole new fan base, a whole new section of the fan base, their own player that they can go, man, you should have seen Mike Green. Man, that guy was unreal. Just like we talk about the BJ Cohens and we talk about the Vinnie Currys and we talk about these other great pass rushers and interior defensive linemen, the Girardi Mercers and the Ricky
Billy
Halls,
Lyons.
Billy Lyons and the Paul Toviesis, all these guys that are MAC era and Southern Conference era greats that all of us old people continually talk about to these youngsters. Mike Green is their guy that they get to start that with. If they make a Mount Rushmore, those college students, when they become adult fans, and he'll be on their Mount Rushmore because they watched him play. So it is no small feat to have to replace the greatness of Ralph Street. It just isn't. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is it's a huge rebuild. Warren became a starter the last third of the season last year. We talked earlier about Clayton kind of coming on, but then, the overwhelming majority of the 2025 starts are no longer on the roster. Warren, Ward, Clayton were all in the 2 deep and contributed strongly, but this feels like an all-new unit and an all-new scheme. So it's just a total rebuild. Now, we talked about that rebuild as a strength on who was brought in, but right now that's on paper.
It has to come together. That's right. So I think my number 2 is basically what you said. I said it's more projection than proven production at this point. We think it will be great, but it has not been rubber to road yet. Outside of Braden Ward, who I think a lot of fans have continued excitement about, and he's shown what he can do, and they feel pretty good about him. Much of the optimism is based on what players can become rather than what they've already shown. But the sky's the limit. The potential limits are there. It's what we think they will turn into in this defensive scheme and also playing alongside one another. And so it's that whole rising tide rises all boats kind of thing. But it's still a huge question mark. It looks great on paper, man. It looks great. Those heights and weights and those highlight films at other places, they look great. But they got to do it in Kelly Green and White. They've got to do it as a cohesive unit. And we've got to prove it rather than just talk about how good it might be. What's your
KD, August makes 29 years that we've had this hive mind you get out of my head type deal. And it never ceases to amaze me because you did it again. Building off the previous weakness, we do not have that one dominant player returning. Think back to the year we were talking about before the season, Mike Green. You remember we went on other people's shows and we're like, you guys need to pay attention about Mike Green. It's going to be a big year and he will win the defensive player of the year in the Sun Belt. He will. He's going to dominate. And he did. Think back about Owen Porter and Kobe Cumberland on the same team. And you can go back and talk about those guys that we just riddled off there. We always had 1, 2, or sometimes even 3 guys that when they were coming back, we're like, man, we know what we got in those guys because they were starters. They've been dominant for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years sometimes. We don't have that right now. We've got some guys that contributed. We got some guys that had some spot starts, but we do not have that one dominant guy that we've had for a long time. Last year was an anomaly with the entire team basically having to be rebuilt from production standpoint. But every year other than that, we've had one guy that we could say, well, that guy's back and we know he dominates. We don't have that right now. It's on paper. It's potential, like you just said, and now we have to see it.
Yep. I'm going to feed off that a little bit because this feeds into a separate but very similar weakness. The production must follow the potential. On paper, great, looks great, and we're really high on these guys, but they still have to prove it to us, as a fan base. Not me and you, but as a fan base and each other, they have to go out and do it. But if Marshall struggles to stop the run, if they cannot get to the quarterback, the entire defense is going to struggle. It doesn't matter if you went out and got 4 all-conference corners. Why would you ever pass the ball if you're getting 6, 7, 8 yards a carry? This defensive line legitimately has to be your first line of defense in a very real and very impactful way. Now, if you don't have a fourth, I'm going to go ahead and give you my fourth because that might be the biggest boom or bust of all, and that's that the portal pieces got to hit. They have got to hit. You went out and got 9 guys, 8 guys. All of them through the transfer portal. You're expecting many of them to start. You're expecting many of them to contribute in a very big way. If this portal room does not hit, Marshall does not hit on defense. A massive portion of the ceiling in this room is tied to the transfer portal. And if these guys are impactful players, it just is what it is. If you bring in 9 newcomers and one of them hits and the other 8 don't, I can't see how that will equate to the type of football that you want to play. Yeah. So it's very boomer bust. Very, very boomer bust. It's time for the Thundercast 5. Russ, are you ready?
I am.
Who is your biggest loss from this position group from 2025?
I cheated, and I'm going to guess that you did too. I'm picking Coach Ralph Street instead of an individual player.
Yeah. I hate to be that way, but there were some guys I really liked. I really would have loved to see Jamal Weiss back another year.
P3.
Yeah, and Paul Hudson III would have been an excellent choice. And again, this is nothing against Anthony Leonard. I like the guy. Right. I think he's going to do a great job.
I think he'd tell you the same thing.
But Ralph freaking Street was Ralph freaking Street, man. Yeah. And he's one of our own, and that's why it hurts a little bit to see him go.
Well, the deal is you're not talking about one player at that point because he's the coach. You're talking about the entire room. You know, how he leveled everyone up. I mean, the players would tell you that. The other coaches would tell you that you could trust the parents that we talked to of these players. We're like, hey, Ralph's got those guys. He's got them. And that is why he is so valuable, because it is not just one player. It's not just 3 players that left. Even all 6 players that left, you felt like if Ralph was still here, oh, well, just bring in some new clay and he'll have them at the same spot. So that's why I picked him. I know it's cheating because we usually pick players, but I think this is a special circumstance.
Let's get right. This is a special circumstance. Who are you most excited to see in 26?
I've cheated again. I put the return of the 4-down sets with 2 rushers on the outside. I am most excited to see that formation and that attack scheme versus any individual player.
Yeah, well, I'm not cheating anymore. I'm actually picking guys, and I'm uber excited to see the return of a 4-man front. But I'm most excited to see Braden Ward this year in a 4-man front with other weapons around him to really be able to cut loose that raw natural talent. You know, I didn't say this before. We said this about McBride, but at 6'6", Braden Ward has really good bend. Really good bend. I mean, he can bend the line of scrimmage and get to the quarterback, and that really, really excites me as a fan. I've seen it in flashes. I've seen it in spurts, but now I want to see it across a full season. I'm really, really excited to see the Montgomery, West Virginia, Riverside High School product, one of our own, yet again, Braden Ward.
You know, when he came into the final game, I think it was last year, he was leading. I don't remember if he ended up leading us in sacks, but he was leading us in sacks and was not the starter. You know, so I would love to see what he's going to do. It reminds me a little bit about Mike Green. Remember, Mike came on and was playing more, had a hellacious last half of his previous year, and you could just feel it building. You would see him in the weight room, the videos they were putting out, and you just like, man, this guy's going to blow up. And I get the same feeling from Braden Ward.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I'm really, really excited. It has nothing really to do that he's a West Virginia guy, but that doesn't hurt.
No, it always helps.
Who's your breakout player this year? You got to get one.
I did. And I'm picking Ward, and you said it earlier, it could be one of 7, 8 different guys. I mean, you know, because when you're replacing so much or elevating so many people into more significant roles, I feel like there is potential for a lot of people, but the breakout for me has got to be like I just talked about. I feel like he's not going to take the next step. He's going to take the next 2.5 to 3 steps. And that's why I've got him as my overall number 1 breakout player.
I love that. And I love the thought process behind it. I did not choose Braden Ward because I feel like I've seen the potential, and I just feel like it's going to happen, even though you would classify that probably as a breakout year. I'm going with a newcomer to the program, and I'm going with Kelvin McBride because I think he was specifically brought here for a reason.
100%.
And to be that flexible type player, he's going to have the opportunity to break out in different ways. You know, you could see him with a bunch, I'll say a bunch of sacks, but also maybe an interception or 2, or, you know what I mean? Like he could be an all around breakout player in this hybrid role. And that too ought to excite Herd fans. It shouldn't just excite me. It does. It should excite Herd fans. Having a Swiss Army knife type player that's not a safety coming down to play or a defensive back coming down to play linebacker, but a guy playing linebacker and also defensive line, I think that really, really can open up some exciting possibilities for what this defense might be able to do. When it's all said and done in 26, who do you think will be the MVP of the unit?
Well, because of what I just said about the breakout, I'm doubling up, and I got Ward as the MVP. I think that he's going to put up some really good pressure numbers, and I feel like that's not all. If you remember back in that Southern Miss road game, he had a very good athletic, I think it was over the shoulder, if I'm remembering correctly, interception, and that was from a defensive end position. And I just feel like when it's all said and done, that stat line is going to pop, and he is going to be the guy because he was here, he stayed here, all that. He's going to be the leader of it, in my opinion, and he's going to be our MVP.
I specifically did not pick the same person for anything on this episode because in the duration of my preparation, I thought, golly, man, there could be 6, 7, 8, you know?
Sure.
So I thought I'm going to spread the love around this year. But again, your reasoning is not wrong. It's very sound. I think I'm going to choose the guy who's going to be doing a lot of the dirty work, who's not going to probably get involved in a lot of those sexy type plays, but he's going to he's going to cause a lot of those plays to be made, right?
Mhm.
Because he's going to draw so much attention.
I know who you're saying.
Well, I mean, it's the preseason All SBC selection. It's McKaylen Warren. I think he's
Mhm.
going to be the unsung MVP of the room because of the attention that he is going to have to be that they're going to have to pay to him. He's going to
Mhm.
free up Ward to be able to rush more freer. He's going to be able to open up a running lane so that those linebackers can shoot through the line of scrimmage, you know what I mean? Or close up a running lane. So there's a gap somewhere else that somebody else is going to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think all that dirty work is just going to go flying under the radar for fans, mostly for fans. Now in film rooms, coaches, they're going to see that stuff and he's going to get the proper amount of respect and the props that way. But I think fans aren't going to pay attention to McKaylen Warren sucking in 2 blockers, but they're
Right.
going to see Braden Ward lay out the quarterback. And that's what there's
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
But what made that play possible? Potentially it was McKaylen Warren doing what he did.
Yeah,
So,
because you look at some of those defensive tackle stats and they're like, had 15 tackles on the year, well, yeah, because he had 2 guys draped on him, like you're just talking about, unless they're running at him, he's not going to be chasing down a running back on the second level at 382 pounds. So I get exactly what you're saying.
yeah. So who's your sleeper pick this year?
Man, it is Nwabuisi Azalea. And like I said, I'm really high on him. I thought, just like with the breakout, that it could be 5 different guys. Because I generally look at those that are in the heavy contributors thing, and I picked out several of those that it could be to be the sleeper. But I'm going with Azalea because 329, he was highly recruited, very intriguing, 4 years to play. I think he's coming here to make a statement, and I think that you're going to see him have the potential to be a starter.
Mm-hmm. I like that. A young guy. That has sleeper written all over it, you know. I'm going a different route. I'm going with the 6'5", 255 red shirt senior Jacarius J.C. Clayton. If he is healthy, look the frick out because he has all the tools to be a all conference caliber defensive end. And if it all gets put together in this final year of eligibility and he puts together the season that he is hoping to put together, Katie bar the door. Because it's more than a sleeper pick. You might be an MVP type category at that point. You might be, God, I don't know. You could be anyway. You could be in a number of places. The potential, the ceiling for him is so high, and if he is able to put it all together, and he and Ward and he and McBride or Painter or all, if they all complement each other the way that they can, J.C. Clayton could have a monster season. An absolute monster season. All right, let's get the final verdict. Is this unit better in 2026 than it was in 2025?
100%. And a lot of that goes by virtue of instead of having 3 in a 3-3-5, most of the time you're going to have 4. So you're going to have an extra guy on there. So to me, yes, I think that it by default is going to be better, but by the players that they brought in and the talent that they have specifically for those round holes, and they're the round pegs, as you said, it is 100% going to be better on the defensive line than it was last year.
I 100% agree. I think this unit overall is better than it was in 2025. I think at the end of the season, you might go back and go, tying them for 4th in the Sun Belt had to be because it was a lot of new and nobody had just seen it yet, and some things came together. I think you might be looking at a top 2 defensive line unit in the Sun Belt when it's all said and done. And I'm going to give you some of the talking points of why I feel that way. A lot of them are going to be just repeat and refreshers, but I want to bring it all together as why the return to a four-man front cannot be understated. You've said that. I've said that. I just feel like it suits what we are able to do better. The room appears significantly deeper, particularly on that edge position. The coaching staff, again, intentionally added older, college-ready, experienced players to bolster this room. McKaylen Warren, Shamira, they give this interior a chance to be more physical against the run. There are more legitimate pass rushers than there were a season ago. And finally, this room has the potential to absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage, which is the identity that Tony Gibson wants defensively. He wants to control the line. And these guys have the potential to absolutely dominate the line for most of the season. And I mean most outside of maybe 1 or 2 games. So you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, it's for our presenting sponsor. Don't forget that Secure Construction is not just out here replacing roofs. You can get a free, honest estimate for them to look and see about minor repairs that your roof may need. Several different types of roofs, commercial, residential, asphalt shingles, rubber, you name it, they can do it, metal roofing. So if you have something that needs inspected, give them a call. Tell them the Thundercast told you to Thundercast told you to reach out to them.
Yeah. We appreciate Secure Construction for coming aboard this year and presenting the 2026 Position Group Breakdown Series. My closing thought is simple, man. This may not be the most proven defensive line that Marshall's ever had, but it has a chance to be one of the deepest and best constructed, curated defensive line rooms of the Sun Belt era. With that, take us out of here.
Yes, whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Vet, or whether you see us at the Joan, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It is the Thundercast. We will see you next week. Stick around to see who it'll be. Later.